Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I'm back! Thanks to the comments from my friend Noor, from my friend Omar, from my friend Talia, from Jamal, from so many people asking, when are you going to read Gangsta Granny? And the answer is today, Tuesday, November 3rd, American Election Day. I hope you voted if you're American and you're over 18. I'm back. I hope we can continue reading, having a good time, and I am so happy you guys enjoy listening to me. So without further ado, let us begin this lovely book called Gangsta Granny by David Walliams. Chapter 1, Cabbagey Water. But Granny is so boring, said Ben. It was a cold Friday evening in November, and as usual, he was slumped in the back of his mom and dad's car. Once again, he was on his way to stay the night at his dreaded Granny's house. All old people are. Don't talk about your Granny like that, said Dad weakly, his fat stomach pushing up against the steering wheel of the family's little brown car. I hate spending time with her, protested Ben. Her TV doesn't work. All she wants to do is play Scrabble, and she stinks of cabbage. In fairness to the boy, she does stink of cabbage, agreed Mom, as she applied some last-minute lip liner. You're not helping, wife, muttered Dad. At worst, my mother has a very slight odor of boiled vegetables. Can I come with you? Pleaded Ben. I love what's-it dancing, he lied. It's called ballroom dancing, corrected Dad, and you don't love it. You said, and I quote, I would rather eat my own bogies than watch that rubbish. Now, Ben's mom and dad loved ballroom dancing. Sometimes Ben thought they loved it more than they loved him. There was a TV show on Saturday evenings that mom and dad never missed called Strictly Stars Dancing, where celebrities would be paired with professional ballroom dancers. In fact, if there was a fire in their house and Mum could only save either a sparkly gold tap shoe, once worn by Flavio Flavioli, the shiny tan dancer and heartbreaker from Italy who appeared on every series of the TV hit show, or her only child, Ben thought she would probably go for the shoe. Tonight, his mom and dad were going to an arena to see Strictly Stars Dancing live on stage. I don't know why you don't give up on this pipe dream of becoming a plumber, Ben, and think about dancing professionally, said Mom, her lip liner scrawling across her cheek as the car bounced over a particularly bumpy speed bump. Mom had a habit of applying makeup in the car, which meant she often arrived somewhere looking like a clown. Maybe, just maybe, you could end up on Strictly, added Mom excitedly. Because prancing around like that is stupid, said Ben. Mom whimpered a little and reached for a tissue. You're upsetting your mother. Now just be quiet, please, Ben. There's a good boy, replied Dad firmly, as he turned up the volume on the stereo. Inevitably, a Strictly CD was playing. 50 Golden Greats from the hit TV show was emblazoned on the cover. Ben hated the CD. Not least because he had heard it 1,000,000 times. In fact, he had heard it so many times, it was like torture. Ben's mom worked at the local nail salon, Gail's Nails. Because there weren't many customers, Mom and the other lady who worked there, unsurprisingly called Gail, spent most days doing each other's nails, buffing, cleaning, trimming, moisturizing, coating, sealing, polishing, filing, lacquering, extending, and painting. They were doing things to each other's nails all day long. Unless Flavio Flavioli was on daytime TV. That meant Mom would always come home with extremely long, multicolored plastic extensions on the ends of her fingers. Ben's dad, meanwhile, worked as a security guard at the local supermarket. The highlight of his 20-year career thus far was stopping an old man who had concealed 2 tubs of margarine down his trousers. Although Dad was now too fat to run after any robbers, he could certainly block their escape. Dad met Mom when he wrongly accused her of shoplifting a bag of crisps, and within a year they were married. The car swung around the corner into Gray Close, where Granny's bungalow squatted. It was one of a whole row of sad little homes, mainly inhabited by old people. The car came to a halt, and Ben slowly turned his head towards the bungalow. Looking expectantly out of the living room window was Granny, waiting. She was always waiting by the window for him to arrive. How long has she been there? Thought Ben. Since last week? Ben was her only grandchild, and as far as he knew, no one else ever came to visit. Granny waved, and Ben gave a little smile, which his grumpy face just about permitted him to reluctantly return. Right, one of us will pick you up tomorrow morning at around 11, said Dad, keeping the engine running. Can't you make it 10? Ben, growled Dad. He released the child lock, and Ben grudgingly pushed the door open and stepped out. Ben didn't need the child lock, of course. He was 11 years old and hardly likely to open the door while the car was driving. He suspected his dad only used it to stop him from diving out of the car when they were on their way to Granny's house. Clunk went the door behind him as the engine revved up again. Before he could ring the bell, Granny opened the door. A huge gust of cabbage blasted in Ben's face. It was like a great big slap of smell. She was very much your textbook Granny. Thick glasses, false teeth, hairy chin, white hair, hearing aid, mauve cardigan, used tissue tucked up sleeve, a packet of Murray mints close by, smell of cabbage, tan tights, floral print dress, and burgundy slippers. Are Mommy and Daddy not coming in? She asked, a little crestfallen. This was one of the things Ben couldn't stand about her. She was always talking to him like he was a baby. Brum, brum, brum. Together, Granny and Ben watched the little brown car race off, leaping over the speed bumps. Mom and Dad didn't like spending time with her any more than Ben did. It was just a convenient place to dump him on a Friday night. Norm, sorry, Granny, spluttered Ben. Oh well, come in then, she muttered. Now I've set up the Scrabble board, and for your tea I've got your favorite, cabbage soup. Ben's face dropped even further. No, he thought. Chapter 2. Duck Quacking. Before long, Granny and grandson were sitting opposite each other in deadly silence at the dining room table, just like every single Friday night. When his parents weren't watching Strictly on TV, they were eating curry or going to the movies. Friday night was their date night. And ever since Ben could remember, they had been dropping him off with his granny when they went out. If they weren't going to see Strictly Stars Dancing live on stage live, they would normally go to the Taj Mahal, the curry house on the high street, not the ancient white marble monument in India, and eat their own body weight in poppadoms. All that could be heard in the bungalow was the ticking of the carriage clock on the mantelpiece, the clicking of metal spoons against porcelain bowls, and the occasional high-pitched whistle of Granny's faulty hearing aid. It was a device whose purpose seemed to be not so much to aid Granny's deafness, but to cause deafness in others. It was one of the main things that Ben hated about his granny. The others were, number 1, Granny would always spit into the used tissue she kept up the sleeve of her cardigan and wipe her grandson's face with it. Number 2, her TV had been broken since 1992, and now it was covered in dust so thick it was like fur. Number 3, her house was stuffed full of books, and she was always trying to get Ben to read them, even though he loathed reading. Number 4, Granny insisted you wore a heavy winter coat all year round, even on a boiling hot day, otherwise you wouldn't feel the benefit. Number 5, she reeked of cabbage. Anyone with a cabbage allergy would not be able to come within 10 miles of her. Number 6, Granny's idea of an exciting day out was feeding moldy crust of bread to some ducks in a pond. Number 7, she constantly blew off without even acknowledging it. Number 8, those blow-offs didn't just smell of cabbage, they smelled of rotten cabbage. Number 9, Granny made you go to bed so early it seemed hardly worthwhile getting up in the first place. Number 10, she knitted her only grandson jumpers for Christmas with puppies or kittens on them, which he was forced to wear during the whole festive period by his parents. How's your soup? Inquired the old lady. Ben had been stirring the pale green liquid around the chipped bowl for the last 10 minutes, hoping it would somehow disappear. It wouldn't, and now it was getting cold. Cold bits of cabbage floating around in some cold cabbagey water. It's delicious, thank you, replied Ben. Good. Tick, tock, tick, tock. Good, said the old lady again. Clink, clink. Good. Granny seemed to find it as hard to speak to Ben as he did to her. Clink, clink, whistle. How is school? She asked. Boring, muttered Ben. Adults always ask kids how they're doing at school. The one subject kids absolutely hate talking about. You don't even want to talk about school when you're at school. "Oh," said Granny. "Tick, tock, clink, clank, whistle, tick, tock." "Well, I must check on the oven," said Granny after the long pause stretched out into an even longer pause. "I've got your favorite cabbage pie on the go." She rose slowly from her seat and made her way to the kitchen. As she took each step, a little bubble of wind puffed out of her saggy bottom. It sounded like a duck quacking. Either she didn't realize or she was extremely good at pretending she didn't realize. Ben watched her go, and then crept silently across the room. This was difficult because of the piles of books everywhere. Ben's granny loved books, and always seemed to have her nose in one. They were stacked up on shelves, lined up on windowsills, piled up in corners. Crime novels were her favorite, books about gangstas, bank robbers, the mafia, and the like. Ben wasn't sure what the difference between a gangsta and a gangster was, but a gangsta seemed much worse. Although Ben hated reading, he loved looking at the covers of all Granny's books. They had fast cars and guns and glamorous ladies luridly painted on them. And Ben found it hard to believe this boring old granny of his liked reading stories that looked so thrilling. Why is she obsessed with gangstas, thought Ben. Gangstas don't live in bungalows. Gangstas don't play Scrabble. Gangstas probably don't like the smell of cabbage. Ben was a very slow reader, and the teachers at school made him feel stupid because he couldn't keep up. The headmistress had even put him down a year in the hope that he would catch up on his reading. As a result, all his friends were in a different class, and he felt nearly as lonely at school as he did at home, with his parents who only cared about ballroom dancing. Eventually, after a hairy moment where he nearly knocked over a stack of real-life crime books, Ben made it to the pot plant in the corner. He quickly tipped the remainder of his soup into it. The plant looked as if it was already dying, and if it wasn't dead yet, Granny's cold cabbage soup was sure to kill it off. Suddenly, Ben heard Granny's bum squeaking again as she made her way into the dining room, so he sped back to the table. He sat there trying to look as innocent as possible with his empty bowl in front of him and his spoon in his hand. "I finished my soup. Thank you, Granny. It was yummy." "That's good," said the old lady as she trundled back to the table, carrying a saucepan on a tray. "I've got plenty more here for you, boy." Smiling, she served him up another bowl. Ben gulped in terror. Chapter 3, Plumbing Weekly. "I can't find Plumbing Weekly, Raj," said Ben. It was the next Friday, and the boy had been scouring the magazine shelves of the local newsagent's shop. He couldn't find his favorite publication anywhere. The magazine was aimed at professional plumbers, and Ben was beguiled by pages and pages of pipes, taps, cisterns, ballcocks, boilers, tanks, and drains. Plumbing Weekly was the only thing he enjoyed reading, mainly because it was crammed full of pictures and diagrams. Ever since he had been old enough to hold things, Ben had loved plumbing. When other children were playing with ducks in the bath, Ben had asked his parents for bits of pipe and made complicated water channeling systems. If a tap broke in the house, he fixed it. If a toilet was blocked, Ben wasn't disgusted, he was ecstatic. Ben's parents didn't approve of him wanting to be a plumber, though. They wanted him to be rich and famous, and to their knowledge, there had never been a rich and famous plumber. Ben was as good with his hands as he was rubbish at reading, and was absolutely fascinated when a plumber came round to fix a leak. He would watch in awe as a junior doctor might watch a great surgeon at work in an operating theater. But he always felt like a disappointment to his mom and dad. They desperately wanted him to fulfill the ambition they had never managed, to become a professional ballroom dancer. Ben's mom and dad had discovered their love of ballroom dancing too late to become champions themselves. And to be honest, they seemed to prefer sitting on their bums watching it on TV to actually taking part. As such, Ben tried to keep his passion private. To avoid hurting his mom and dad's feelings, he stashed his copies of Plumbing Weekly under his bed, and he had made an arrangement with Raj so that every week the newsagent would keep the plumbing magazine aside for him. Now, though, he couldn't find it anywhere. Ben had searched for the magazine behind Carrying and Heat and even looked underneath The Lady. Not an actual lady, I meant the magazine called The Lady. All to no avail. Raj's store was madly messy, but people came from miles away to shop there as he always brought a smile to their faces. Raj was halfway up a stepladder putting up Christmas decorations. Well, I say Christmas decorations. He was actually putting up a banner that read Happy Birthday, though he had Tipp-X'd out the word birthday and replaced it in scratchy biro with Christmas. Raj carefully stepped down off the ladder to help Ben with his search. Your Plumbing Weekly, Let me think. Have you looked beside the toffee bonbons, said Raj. Yes, replied Ben. And it's not underneath the coloring books? No. And you have checked behind the penny chews? Yes. Well, this is very mysterious. I know I ordered one for you, young Ben. Very mysterious. Raj was speaking extremely slowly, in that way people do when they are thinking. I'm so sorry, Ben. I know you love it, but I don't have a clue where it is. I do have a special offer on cornettos. It's November, Raj. It's freezing outside, said Ben. Who would want to eat a cornetto now? Everyone when they hear my special offer. Wait until you hear this. Buy 23 cornettos, get one free. Why on earth would I want 24 cornettos? Said Ben with a laugh. Well, I don't know. You could maybe eat 12 and put the other 12 in your pocket to enjoy later. That's a lot of cornettos, Raj. Why are you so keen to get rid of them? They go out of date tomorrow, said Raj as he lumbered over to the freezer cabinet, slid open the glass top, and pulled out a cardboard box of cornettos. A freezing cold mist immediately shrouded the shop. Look, best before 15th of November. Ben studied the box. It says best before 15th of November, 1996. Well, said Raj, even more reason to put them on special offer. Okay, Ben, this is my final offer. Buy 1 box of cornettos, I will give you 10 boxes absolutely free. Really, Raj? No thanks, said Ben. He peered into the freezer cabinet to see what else might be lurking in there. It had never been defrosted, and Ben wouldn't have been surprised to see a perfectly preserved woolly mammoth from the Ice Age inside. Hang on, he said, as he moved a few frost-encrusted ice lollies out of the way. It's in here, Plumbing Weekly. Ah, yes, I remember now, said Raj. I put it in there to keep it fresh for you. Fresh? Said Ben. Well, young man, this magazine comes in on a Tuesday, but it's Friday today, so I put it in the freezer to keep it fresh for you, Ben. I didn't want it to go off. Ben wasn't sure how any magazine could ever go off, but he thanked the newsagent anyway. That's very kind of you, Raj, and I'll have a packet of Rolos, please. I can offer you 73 packets of Rolos for the price of 72, exclaimed the newsagent with a smile that was meant to entice. No thanks, Raj. 1,000 packets of Rolos for the price of 998? No thanks, said Ben. Are you mad, Ben? That's a wonderful offer. All right, you drive a hard bargain. Ben, 1,000,007 packets of Rolos for the price of 1,000,004. That's 3 packets of Rolos absolutely free. I'll just take 1 packet in the magazine, thank you. Of course, young sir. I can't wait to get stuck into Plumbing Weekly later. I have to go and spend the whole night with my old boring granny again. It had been a week since Ben's last visit, and the dreaded Friday had rolled around once more. His parents were going to see a chick flick according to his mom. Romance and kissing and all that goo. Yuckity yuck yuck. Tut tut tut, said Raj, shaking his head as he counted out Ben's change. Ben instantly felt ashamed. He had never seen the newsagent do this before. Like all the other local kids, Ben regarded Raj as one of us, not one of them. He was so full of life and laughter, Raj seemed a world away from parents and teachers and all the grown-ups who felt they could tell you off because they were bigger than you. Just because your granny is old, young Ben, said Raj, doesn't mean that she is boring. I am getting on a bit myself, and whenever I have met your granny, I have found her to be a very interesting lady. But don't be too hard on her, Ben, pleaded Raj. We will all be old one day, even you. And I'm sure your granny will have a secret or two. Old people always do. Chapter 4, Mystery and Wonder. Ben wasn't all sure that Raj was right about Granny. That night, it was the same old story. Granny served up cabbage soup, followed by cabbage pie, and for dessert, it was a cabbage mousse. She even found some cabbage-flavored after-dinner chocolates somewhere. Cabbage-flavored chocolates are not as nice as they sound, and they don't sound nice. After dinner, Granny and Ben sat down together on the musty sofa as they always did. Scrabble time, exclaimed Granny. Great, thought Ben. Tonight's going to be 1,000,000 times more boring than last week. Ben detested Scrabble. If he had his way, Ben would build a rocket and blast all the Scrabble boards in the world into outer space. Granny pulled out the dusty old Scrabble box from the sideboard and set up the game on the poof. Ben sighed. What seemed like decades later, but was probably just hours, Ben stared at his letters before scanning the board. He had already put down boring, ancient, quack, double word score, pointless, pongy, this had to be checked in the dictionary, wrinkles, cabbage sick, triple word score, escape, help, I hate the stupid game. Granny had disallowed this on the count of it not being a word. He had an E, an M, an I, a U, and a D. Granny had just put down merriment, double word score, so Ben used the T at the end to form the word tedium. Well, it's nearly 8 o'clock, young man, announced Granny, looking at her little gold watch. Time for your Betty Buys, I think. Ben groaned inwardly. Betty Buys? He wasn't a toddler. But I don't have to go to bed until 9 o'clock at home, he protested. And not until 10 o'clock when I haven't got school in the morning. No, Ben, off you go to bed, please. The old lady couldn't be quite firm when she wanted to be. And don't forget to brush your teeth. I'll be up soon to give you a bedtime story if you like. You always used to love a bedtime story. Later, Ben stood at the sink in the bathroom. It was a cold, damp room with no window. Some of the tiles had fallen off the wall. There was just one sad little frayed towel and a very worn bar of soap that looked like it was half soap, half mold. Ben hated brushing his teeth, so he pretended to brush his teeth. Pretending to brush your teeth is simple. Don't tell your parents I told you, but if you want to try it for yourself, all you have to do is follow this handy step-by-step guide. Number 1, turn on the cold tap. Number 2, wet the toothbrush. Number 3, squeeze a tiny amount of toothpaste on your finger and place finger in mouth. Number 4, move the trace of toothpaste around your mouth with your tongue. Number 5, spit. Number 6, turn off the tap. See, it's so easy, nearly as easy as brushing your teeth. Ben looked at himself in the bathroom mirror. He was 11 years old, but shorter than he wanted to be, so he stood on his tiptoes for a moment. Ben was aching to be older. Only a few more years, he thought, and he would be taller and hairier and spottier, and his Friday nights would be very different. He wouldn't have to stay at boring old grannies anymore. Instead, Ben would be able to do all the thrilling things the older kids did in town on Friday nights. Hang out around a gang of friends outside the off-license, waiting for someone to tell you off. Or alternatively, sitting at the bus stop with some girls in tracksuits and chew gum and never actually get on a bus. Yes, a world of mystery and wonder awaited him. However, for now, even though it was still light outside and he could hear boys in the nearby park playing football, it was time for Ben to go to sleep. In a hard little bed and a damp little room in his granny's run-down little bungalow that smelled of cabbage. Not just a little bit, a lot. Sighing, Ben got under the covers. Just then, Granny gently opened the door to his bedroom. He quickly shut his eyes and pretended to be asleep. She lumbered over to the bed, and Ben could almost feel her standing over him for a moment. I was going to tell you that bedtime story, she whispered. The old lady had often told him stories when he was younger, about pirates and smugglers and master criminals, but he was far too old for that nonsense now. What a shame you're asleep already, she said. Well, I just wanted to say that I love you. Good night, my little Benny. He hated being called Benny, too. And little. The nightmare continued as Ben sensed his granny bending over to give him a kiss. The prickly old hairs on her chin bristled uncomfortably against his cheek. Then he heard the familiar rhythmic quacking sound as her bum squeaked with every step. She squeaked her way back to the door and closed it behind her, sealing the smell in. That's it, thought Ben. I have to escape. So that's enough for today. We've read the first 4 chapters. Ben is trapped with his granny, who seems like a not so exciting, kind of boring person, which you should not say about your grannies. I have 2 grannies. They're wonderful and exciting people. I'm not talking about them. So inshallah, we will be able to finish this soon. Let me know what you think in the comments. What do you predict is going to happen next? Do you expect the adventure to continue the same way? Do you think we're going to get something exciting? How do you feel about Ben and his granny? Do let me know. Inshallah, I'll be back very soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi. Be well and go and vote. Bye, y'all.